A US-based startup in the agricultural sector has had a difficult introduction to Canada. Farmers Business Network says it's building a database of prices for things like seeds and chemicals, which the clients, farmers, can use to compare prices. Now, traditionally, farmers growing the same crops on the same acreage may have paid very different prices for inputs. FBN says it wants those prices to be more transparent, but also says it has been locked in a battle with the big farm seed and chemical sellers in Canada who don't like the competition. And now the Canadian Competition Bureau is involved and is investigating FBN's allegations. We're joined by Charles Barron, co-founder of the Farmers Business Network. Charles, thanks for coming on the show. So tell us, first off, what problem do you think, what problem are you setting out to solve for farmers?
Well, great to be with you, Andy. Thanks so much for having us. Well, the problem is very basic, which is that in agriculture, pricing is not transparent for the major inputs. Now, inputs like seed and chemicals make up the major costs that farmers have to bear on their operations, which directly impacts their incomes. And when farmers go to purchase those products, they don't get price lists or can't really shop online. They can't check around very easily. It's quite difficult because of the highly consolidated nature of the market. So what FBN does is it allows farmers to network together, to crowdsource prices, to figure out what fair market prices are, and then get e-commerce competition. That helps farmers fundamentally lower their prices and improve their incomes.
And one simple way would be a farmer takes his or her invoice and simply takes a photo of it and sends it in to you guys?
That's right. It's very simple. So what farmers can do in Canada is same as in the US. They can take a picture of the invoice. It comes into our system, and then they can check thousands of different input products, seeds and chemicals, and see what fair market prices are in their provinces. And so it shows them what other farmers are paying. Now, why this is such an issue is that what we actually find in the data, and we just refreshed our analysis by analyzing thousands of invoices. In Canada, for example, farmers can be paying 200 to 300% on what another farm is paying for something like a popular chemical.
That's interesting. And so obviously, yeah, I mean, if I'm a seller of something, I love to have opaque pricing. I can jack up prices somewhere else and not have somebody say, "Well, you're charging them much less." So the Competition Bureau is involved. Now, I'm working off a Reuters report here. Apparently, they did not specifically identify any of the big input companies here. However, court documents identify Bayer, Corteva, BASF. Now, tell us, what have they been doing in reaction to your initiative?
Well, I can't comment specifically about the Competition Bureau's process and proceeding now that the matter is before them. And we respect the Competition Bureau and their process and really appreciate that it is getting the due attention. But I can tell you the nature of what we faced here in the US, which took years to develop, happened very quickly in Canada. So all manners of resistance to FBN being able to provide growers with price transparency, to provide growers with a new competitive offering for inputs, we've dealt with. So we dealt with suppliers threatening other partners of ours, retailers threatening manufacturers from working with FBN, seed companies threatening other seed companies to cut off their licensing if they sell to FBN. Those are the types of things we dealt with in the US. And for example, when we came out with our e-commerce offering and price transparency, the industry labeled it the devil of price transparency. So it couldn't have been clearer what their position was. When we showed up to Canada, the resistance was immediate, and that's the matter that's now been before the Competition Bureau. But the issues Canadian farmers face are no different from the issues American farmers face, which fundamentally due to the consolidated nature of the industry and the lack of price transparency and competition has hurt their incomes.
Because we've seen these huge global consolidations involved for the producers of farm inputs.
Yeah, that's right. In the case of seed, for example, 30 years ago, you had over 400 seed companies. Now you really have 3. And they're global businesses. These are the same manufacturers who do business in Canada as well as the US. And that power that they've been able to develop really comes down to their control of genetic traits and the licensing process of that technology, but a highly consolidated nature of both the manufacturing and now the retail system. And that's the reality that faces producers, which are, you have to remember, are family entrepreneurs in rural areas. They're the bedrocks of those local economies. And so goes their income, as how goes those local economies as well.
And of course, they're by nature fragmented. What has the reaction been among Canadian farmers? Can you give us an idea of how many have signed up?
Yeah, so in Canada, we have over 1,500 or roughly 1,500 members, which roughly equates to about 9 million acres of cropping production. And in Canada, if you took the two major crops, canola and wheat, there's about 40 million acres of production, and there's several other major crops in the country, but those are the two big ones. So what we can do is, with our members, they've joined FBN because they want this to exist in the market. They want there to be a competitive offering. They want to have more leverage. They want to have a more competition and more competitive choices, and they fundamentally want transparency. Now, our ability to offer products has been very limited. We can only offer a very small subset of the inputs that farmers need to purchase right now. But that notwithstanding, farmers have been joining FBN at a very aggressive rate because they want this to take place. In the U.S., we have, and Canada combined, we have over 10,300 farms, about 36 million acres of producers, now working together to create a more competitive system.
So tell us, what exactly are you selling to farmers, and why is it hard for you to get stuff?
Well, what we do is we provide several major categories of products that farmers need. The seeds that they would need to grow their crops, the crop protection chemicals, in some cases the fertilizers. In Canada, we no longer can provide the seeds, but we can provide a very small number of crop protection chemicals which serve primarily canola and wheat growers. And those chemicals we can offer at much lower prices than the market, which when you're a several thousand acre operation, if you're saving 10, 20% on crop protection, that can add up to tens of thousands of dollars, even hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings right back to your bottom line. Now, we can only offer a subset of those products because, again, some of the competitive pressures that we faced in the market that have limited the amount of products that we could offer. So that obviously hurts those growers, and those growers are very eager to get more competitive choices there.
I mean, farmers are sharp cookies. Why haven't they done something about this themselves over the years?
I think it fundamentally goes back to what you said. Farmers are fragmented in nature, so there may be 40 million acres of producers, but independently, any one farm has very little bargaining power, has very little negotiating power on their own. Even the very largest farms, and what we find is that the prices that the very largest farms get really don't differ all that much from a much smaller farm. They might get 5, 10, 15% savings, but not massively, not 200%, not 300%. That's the price variances that we see in the market, and that's fundamentally due to the lack of transparency.
Charles, a fascinating story.
And so,
thanks.
Now,
sorry, finish your thought.
Okay, well, I was just saying, now with an online network and the ability to use both data to crowdsource precision agronomic data that farmers capture on their farm, plus the invoicing and pricing information from their businesses, they can now create that picture for themselves. And that's what's new about FBN, is that it takes a partner who actually represents farmers, who stands on their side, and gives them the platform to be able to do it.
Charles, thank you very much for joining us. Charles Barron, co-founder, Farmers Business Network.